Electing the president, Electoral College. Did you know that voters in the United States don't vote for the president? When they go to the polls on election day, they are actually voting for a group of electors. These electors have pledged to support a party's nominee for president. Many people believe they are voting for the president because the ballot lists the names of the nominees and not the names of the electors. The delegates to the Constitutional Convention in 1787 had long debates about how to make sure the best candidate would be chosen to be president. Some delegates supported a direct election where the president is elected by the citizens. Others were in favor of having Congress choose the president, and still others thought that state legislatures should make the choice. The delegates finally agreed on a compromise, the system of indirect election of the president. In an indirect election, electors chosen by each state would elect the president. This way, ordinary citizens in each state would have a say, but the final decision would be made by the people who are better informed about the candidates and the issues. This system of presidential electors, called the Electoral College, is still in effect today. But some adjustments have been made over the years. At first, the electors voted for two candidates. The one with the highest number of votes became president, and the one with the second highest number became vice president. But in 1796, political foes or enemies were chosen for the two posts. Federalist John Adams for president and Democratic Republican Thomas Jefferson for vice president. In the next election, there was a tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The House of Representatives had to decide which one would be president. It was clear that the system needed to be adjusted. In 1804, the 12th Amendment to the Constitution was passed. Candidates could be nominated to run only for president or only for vice president. Today, we elect the president and the vice president on the same ticket. They are a packaged deal. The candidate for president chooses the person who will run for vice president and help him run the country. When the Constitution was written, there were no political parties. After political parties were developed, the party organizations in each state began proposing a slate or list of electors who are pledged to vote for their party's nominee. Voters began to choose between party slates. Throughout the history of the United States, there have been numerous political parties. There are usually two primary political parties that dominate the government. Today, we have the Democrats and the Republicans. There are also independent political parties, also called third parties, that are smaller and have branched off of one of the major parties. People who don't fully support one of the primary parties tend to create third parties to cater to their own philosophies for government. Political parties began to push for winner-take-all elections for electors. This means that the slate political party that receives the most popular votes wins all the state's electoral votes. Today, all the states except Maine and Nebraska use this winner-take-all system. The president and the vice president are the only elected officials who do not gain their office by direct vote of the people. Whoever wins the popular vote in a state wins all of that state's electoral votes. To win the election, a candidate must receive the majority or one more than half of the Electoral College votes. That is 270 electoral votes. To win the presidency, a nominee needs a majority of the electoral votes. On the next election night, you'll notice the TV commentators keep track of the states each nominee wins. They add up the number of electoral votes that each state win represents. As soon as one of the nominees gets one more than half of the total of electoral votes, the race is over. The Electoral College members cast their state's votes on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. The president is officially elected when Congress counts the Electoral College votes on January 6th. When George Washington was elected, there were just 13 states and only 69 electoral votes. Our nation has grown a lot since then, and today there are 538 electoral votes. But the number of electors each state has is still determined the way it was in Washington's day. The Constitution allows each state to have as many electoral votes as it has representatives in Congress. That means a state will have no less than 3 electoral votes. Each state has 2 senators and at least 1 member in the House of Representatives. The number of representatives depends on the size of the state's population. To get the total number of electors, add 3 more electoral votes for Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is not a state, therefore they do not have voting members in Congress. However, people live in Washington, D.C., and they get to vote for president, so they need to have electors. As you'll see from the map, the number of electoral votes that states have range from 54 in California to 3 in Alaska, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, Delaware, and Washington, D.C. Presidential nominees spend a lot of their campaign in the states with higher populations. The number of states that a candidate wins is not as important as the number of electors in the state. Over the years, there have been many criticisms of the Electoral College system. Some of the attempts to change it have been successful, but two important criticisms still remain unanswered. First, there is no guarantee that an elector who is pledged to vote for a certain candidate will actually do so. Only a few electors have switched their vote, however, and none changed the outcome of an election. The second criticism is about the winner-take-all system. A nominee can get all of the state's electoral votes by getting just one more popular vote than the opponent gets. Because of the system, 5 nominees have been elected president even though their opponents have received more popular votes nationally. Clinton, Trump in 2016.